Let us begin today's discussion on nature and scope of research. As we have seen yesterday, how what is mean by research, what are the characteristics of research. And now we are going to discuss about types of research. Let me make it a little bit clear and extensive to you that the type of research various writers who wrote books on research methodology, they followed certain kinds of or certain types of research. What I'm talking right now is a general, broad, common types of research. And later on, we will talk about specific types of research that we use to find it out when we talk about literary research. Friends, there are, or you can classify research into from three perspectives. It is a classification of research. The first classification of research is application of research study. When we pursue research, when we complete the research, how this research is being applied, that is also essential part to be carried when we are pursuing our research. The second classification of research, or the second perspective is objectives in undertaking the research. That's what I said yesterday also, that objectives are the most important part of your research. And the third perspective is inquiry mode, which is employed in your research. These are the three perspectives on which you can classify the research. Now, the first perspective, application. Now, from the point of view of application, you can make somehow two broad categories. The first one is pure research, and second one is applied research. What is pure research? Pure research involves developing and testing theories and hypotheses that are intellectually challenging to the researcher. There are certain theories, there is certain hypothesis which we formulate before moving ahead in our research. We assume something, that is called, you can say in a very simple words, hypothesis. You assume something. and then try to find out what you assume, whether it is right or wrong, correct or wrong. How it is, there are certain theories which you apply for that particular research. But the thing is that this kind of research, which involves developing and testing theories and hypotheses, this kind of research may not have practical application at the present time or somewhere in the future. It is not possible to have application for pure research. Most of the time, this happens with literature. When we move for literary research, we can point out these things very categorically. But if you see, pure research may not have the application in the present time or in future, but that is not going to be used. But that is what you have tested, what you have find it out, because it is most important to find answers of the questions that you have created. Second category is, of course, applied research, which is used in a very specific, with a very specific and with a deliberate purpose. It is there to solve the questions. It is there to formulate a policy. It can be used in administration. It can be used in understanding of certain phenomena. It is exploratory, but it is descriptive. And it is almost done on the basis of research. Applied research is carried out with the help of academics. Most of the students, most of the researchers who pursue their research in language specifically, who pursue their research in particular area of literature, this particular specific purpose, for example, studying the colonial impact on Indian psyche, what sort of colonial impact you find it out on Indian people, and how we are fighting with the colonial mindset, because naturally we don't have those people who were part of the colonial administration. We don't have those people who had seen how colonial policies made the life of society, converted the life, converted the social institutions. For that, what we used to do, we used to find it out either in the literary texts that were produced and find out it, so that we can able to understand that what sort of policies have been made. How many persons are using language, English as their prime language, along with their mother tongues, along with their native language. So these research, applied research or pure research, that category, that area, we need to define, we need to find it out while pursuing our research. That in which area my work is going on, whether it is pure research or whether it is applied research. What happens most of the time that we are unable to understand what sort of research we are doing. We most of the time in getting our research done, don't pay attention towards the category in which our research will fall. Now, the second perspective of research, research, the way we started our lecture today morning, that there's a classification of research based on three perspectives. The first perspective is application, which is we have again categorized it with pure and applied. Second perspective is objectives. From the viewpoint of objectives, research can be classified. And that is what I'm insisting it right from the very first lecture, that we have to focus on objectives. What are our objectives? How will we see to the objectives? The objectives, the viewpoint of objective, you are classifying the research. The objectives can be descriptive, correlational, explanatory, or exploratory. These are the four different, you can say, kinds of objectives. What is descriptive? Descriptive research attempts to describe systematically a situation or a problem or a phenomenon or a service or a program, or provides information about what I said right now, living condition of community, or describe attitude towards an issue. These kinds of descriptive research in the from the point of view of viewpoint of objectives, you can categorize while pursuing your research, while doing your research, while writing on research. You can categorize in which from which point of view your research work is going on. The first, I've said pure and applied. Now, from objective point of view, you're talking about descriptive. In the category of descriptive, you will find out the research attempts, how what sort of research will go on. Either it is, you can later on mention, after completing the three uh, classification, we can point out that what category of research we are pursuing with. Correlational research attempts to discover or establish the existence of relationship or interdependence between two or more aspects of situation. It is trying to find out, it is trying to make a relationship. If you sometimes visit to the library of the university or visit the departmental library, you will find out most of the MPhil dissertations or PhD thesis, all those things were kept there, and in that you will find out most of the topics in literature are dealing with man-woman relationship in someone's novel or in someone's drama, or relationship of marginal in colonial novels. Correlation. You're trying to find out relationship between different characters in that story. This is how you can locate research. This is how you can find out research. Because when you are going to write down a 20-page article at the end of second semester, at that time you should able to find out what sort of topics I should get it, because it is a very common and usual practice that uh, the student need to find out what sort of questions that he is having in his mind regarding to a specific form of literature. Based on those, you can able to formulate your topic, formulate your research. So for the sake of getting familiar with a kind of academic writing, you have to write down a 20-page article by the end of second semester. So how will you make it? That's why what I'm talking about, if you are able to understand what I'm talking about, then it will be easy for you to locate your topic, to understand your topic. How can I find my topic? How can I write 20 pages? Because it's difficult to write down 20 pages on one particular topic with a complete understanding of research methods. So we need to find it out. We need to understand that what exactly is the classification of my research, in which area I should move, whether I'm going to have a descriptive research where I'm describing systematically a situation, realism in the novels of, in the story of, you can write down anything. Realism is a situation that is going to be descriptive research. If you're interested in making a relationship, you are trying to find out the relational approach, you can have a correlational research, which will find out, which will try to establish the existence of relationship. How is the relationship? What sort of different relationships you find it out? People living in different situation, people living in same situation, how are you going to find out the relationship? In this way you can able to locate the topic for your research. The third is explanatory research. Please understand, please remember that we are talking about a classification of research based on three perspectives, and in those three perspectives we are again application perspective, objective perspective, inquiry mode. We are talking about all these three perspectives. In those perspectives we are finding out what sort of category in those perspectives we have. In application perspective, pure and applied. In objective perspective, you are descriptive, correlational, explanatory, and exploratory. Explanatory research attempts to clarify why and how there is a relationship between two or more aspects of a situation or phenomenon. How is there a relationship? Now, please understand there is a difference between correlational and explanatory. In correlational, you are trying to discover or establish the existence of relationship. In explanatory research, you are trying to clarify why and how this relationship takes place in particular situation, takes place in particular phenomenon. This is what you can talk about explanatory research. What is exploratory research then? Exploratory research is undertaken to explore an area where little is known. most of the people are not familiar with what you're talking about. There is a little things familiar to it. Little is known, or you are investigating the possibilities of undertaking a particular research study. It can be called as somehow, it can be sometimes it can be called as a pilot study. You are the first one to study this particular aspect. You're focusing on that. You are trying to investigate the possibility. What sort of possibilities are there in that particular topic, in that particular field? That is called as exploratory research. Now, when you are practicing, you will find out the first three: descriptive, correlational, and explanatory research. These are the common combinations you will find out in most of the research works. These are the common combinations. Please remember, research cannot be exclusively explanatory or descriptive or correlational. It can be a combination of these three also. So you should not say that, okay, I'm focusing only on descriptive, I'm focusing on only explanatory. No, it can be. And most of the time, my friends, these three: descriptive, correlational, and explanatory, these three aspects, these three categories, the first three categories, you'll find out mostly used in pursuing the research. Now, the third perspective. The third perspective is the inquiry mode. Now, from the process which is adopted to find answers to research question, there are two approaches. Because as I said yesterday also, that research means to have a questions on certain issues, certain topics. Questions, and you are searching answers to the questions. And that's why I said everyone is actually a researcher, but very few are research scholars. Because everyone is having an inquisitive mind. We are asking questions to our parents up to a certain age, and then we stop asking questions to our parents, feeling that they are not answering the question. They are getting angry over the questions. So we try to avoid asking questions. Everybody is a researcher. Everybody is having questions in his mind, trying to get answers of all those things. But very few later on become a research scholar. That why? Because they are trying to find out answers to the questions that come to them. They are not dependent on anyone. They are trying to search the answer. They are trying to get the answer. And for that, there are two approaches. One is structured approach, and the second one is unstructured approach. Now, what is structured approach? Structured approach to inquiry is usually classified as quantitative research. Quantitative research. This structured approach. Please understand, there are quantitative approach and qualitative approach. Why qualitative research and quantitative research? In quantitative research, what you do, you follow typical research process. And what is the research process you followed in quantitative research? The research process is to formulate objectives, design, sample, and the questions you are asking to the respondents. Usually you will find out this kind of research takes place during elections. Survey. They used to reach to the people and ask them questions, certain questions, and then after getting the answers of those questions, they're analyzing that, okay, these many people have answered this particular question, these many people answered this particular question. So based on the answers given by the people, that it is said, or it is assumed, or it is pointed out that this party will get this much seats. This is a survey based on questionnaire. You make a questionnaire, give it to the respondent, and respondent is answering to that, and based on those answers you are trying to reach to your hypothesis, to validate the hypothesis. That is a structured approach, and it is more appropriate, my friends. This structured approach is more appropriate to determine the extent, how many people, how many things are going to take place. It is more appropriate to determine the extent of a problem or issue or a phenomena by quantifying the verification. Because most of the time it is a question comes in our mind. Okay, they have predicted that our area, this political party will get elected from our area, but nobody has asked me a question. To whom they ask the question? To whom they reach to ask the question? So in that way, they have got a typical, they took certain sample, and it is very commonly said that if you want to, usually we said in our native language that you want to test something, you will not take the whole thing in your hand. You will take a small pinch of it and you can test it. So they'll not ask 1,000, they will take sample 10 people, and they'll ask 10 people, and from the 10 people they can multiply the verification, and after multiplying that variance, they can able to come to a particular conclusion. That is quantitative approach, quantitative research. How many people have particular problem, so they will find out. Or how many people hold a particular attitude. These type of questions, they used to prepare questionnaire, and based on those questionnaires you are going to get the question answer of all those things. This is what structured approach. Unstructured approach, naturally, it is for qualitative research. It is usually classified as qualitative research. Now, this approach, qualitative approach, which usually we follow, usually I'm not saying regularly, because both the approaches are required in your research. Most of the time, the students of literature follow qualitative research. Now, this approach allows flexibility in all the aspects of research process. There's a flexibility, you can move anywhere. This approach is more appropriate to explore the nature of problem. What is the nature that the problem which you have undertaken? Without quantifying to it. Quantifying is in quantitative research. What is the main objective? Main objective of this research is to derive, is to describe the variations in a phenomena or situation or attitude. Variations. For example, description of an observed situation, description of any observed situation, or the historical enumeration of the events, as I said, colonial impact and all those things, historical enumeration. An account of different opinions of different people about one particular issue. You are going to maintain, we are going to follow that. Description of working conditions in particular industry, in particular society, how industry, how the working conditions explained or find it out or designed or discussed in Charles Dickens novels. You can make your study in that way also. So this is called as unstructured approach. That is qualitative research. Structured approach, quantitative research. Now, friends, please make it very clear to you that both the approaches have their place in research. Don't think that one approach is important and other is not important. Both the approaches have their place in research. Both have their strengths and weaknesses. But in many studies, you will find out you can combine both the approaches together. It is not restricted that, okay, if you are following one approach, go with one approach only. No. While pursuing research, you can apply both the things together. As I said, in objectives, you can have the first three objectives, combination of first three objectives used most of the time in most of the researches. So you have different approaches can be combined together to have a discussion on what you say, the sort of research. Hilway, the very interesting writer, he wrote a book, Tyrus Hilway. He wrote a book called Introduction to Research in 1964. And Tyrus Hilway, in his book Introduction to Research, he identifies mainly three types of research. We have seen classification of research as per the categories. Tyrus Hilway has given three specific types. The first type of research, he says, fact finding. Second, he says, is critical interpretation. And third, he said, complete research. Please don't get confused with what I said before. These are classifications, what I talked. Hilway has given you types of research. What is the primary function? What is the primary function of research, my friends? The primary function of any research is to exercise, is to help in finding facts. Things that are known to us, things that are known to be exists or true. They are part of certain verified information. So we are trying to find out the things hidden in between. So Hilway says fact finding. Fact finding aims at helping to lay down a strong foundation for further work. You'll find out this is very much evident, or you can find out the evidences of these kinds of things in biographies. Biographies which we used to study in literature. Biographies or autobiographies. Please understand. I don't know how many of you are from literature background. Biography, there's a difference between biography and autobiography. Please understand this. Biography can be written by someone else. Autobiography you have to write down of your own. In Marathi it is called as Charitra, Atma Charitra. There's a difference between these two. Biographies can be written by anyone else. I'm writing biography of any of the writer. But the writer is writing his own biography called as autobiography. So fact finding. When you're writing biography, you have to follow the facts. You have to understand the facts. You have to search the facts. What are the facts? What are the true things in the life of this particular person? You're trying to point out, you're trying to find out the facts there. And finding out the facts there, you are trying to get the things done in a very proper, in a very typical way. If you are evaluating biographies of writers, you will find out this fact finding is taken place most of the time. If you are pursuing research on biographies, you have to find facts about it. So you have to point out, you have to annotate it, certain bibliographies for that. Those bibliographies are comprehensive. Those bibliographies need to be trustworthy, because a good research is based on good bibliography. When you're fact finding, you need to have an exploratory bibliography. In the second type of research, critical interpretation, the essence of critical interpretation lies in analysis, classification of the readings which you have, because it is a critical interpretation. You are critically interpreting that particular text. Please understand, we are slowly entering from a general research to literary research. If you see carefully, in literary research, when you are trying to follow the critical interpretation, then you have to analyze it. You have to classify it as per the perspective of reading on a work, or you have to logically argue. You have to take a stand, logical stand with certain perceptions, with its strength and weaknesses. You have to have an assessment of the questions that are coming out of the work. So critical interpretation has a specifically three features which are most interesting one. Critical interpretation is characterized by three features, my friends. The first one is, the first characteristic is, the first feature is, you can say, agreement on the known facts and principles which are governing the area of inquiry. What are you studying? What are you pursuing? What are you locating? What are you trying to find out? What are your inquiries? You are trying to know the facts and principles of it. You have an agreement about it that yes, I have to follow facts and principles. Then I can enter into that particular text. The second one is reasonable, clear, and logical arguments, lead, which will lead to a particular conclusion. And the third one is rational estimation. How you have conducted have you followed that agreement that you made it of? Have you developed your logical arguments? Because in research, if you don't develop a logical arguments, your research is not going to reach to its proper conclusion. These are, in another way, you can say, these are the 3 steps to move towards research. One is to exhaustively work on facts and finding of the facts and principles of which are governing your inquiry. Why I have chosen this topic? What are the facts? What are the principles that I have chosen? Because if you are trying to find out the answer of certain questions, you need to have certain background why these questions have been developed. These questions are not coming naturally. These questions are not coming from someone else. If someone else is asking a question, then you have the person who is asking question, he may have some answers for that question. Then what you are searching for that? In research, it is expected that you should have questions. But how the questions will develop, my friends, if you don't study, if you don't read that thing? You should have certain facts along with you. With the help of those facts, you have certain questions based on it. Now, the questions, you are finding answers to the questions, and how you are putting those answers, you are putting those answers logically connected with each other. They should be rational. They should be clear cut in explaining the things. And what is the third last thing? Last thing is rational estimation, because you have to reach to certain conclusion with the help of those facts, with the help of those principles, with the help of those logical arguments. You are reaching to a particular conclusion. Without reaching to conclusion, your research is incomplete. You have to reach to one particular conclusion. So Tyrus Hilvey pointed out this second type of research called critical interpretation. The third kind of research, complete research. Complete research, as the term used by Hilvey, you want to get perhaps better option to reach to a conclusion. And it combines both the things together. As I'm saying right from the morning, no particular category is being used specifically. It is the combinations of most of these activities, most of these perceptions, most of these approaches to reach to a proper conclusion in a research. If we are trying to find out the answer to the questions that we have to have permutations and combinations. Neither fact finding nor critical interpretation individually leads to solve the problem. It requires permutation. It requires combination. One needs complete research, which is consisting of a problem is solved, What will be the research, ultimate end of the research? The problem is to be solved. There should be a strong body of evidences. There are certain irrefutable facts and opinions. There are analysis of body of evidences with compared to the problem, vis-a-vis to the problem. Those body of evidences logically organized together to find solutions of it and to reach to a definitive conclusion is called as complete research. What is our ultimate aim as a student of literature? Our ultimate aim is to reach to a complete research. Friends, criticism is understood in literary studies as the act of investigating, surveying, or reviewing literary artistic works for making a detailed critical examination of elements or structure of a creative work. Because there is a complete paper of criticism and what approaches we are taking, theories we are taking, philosophies we are taking. Those are based on criticism. And criticism in literary studies is the act of investigating, surveying, reviewing articles, or reviewing literary or artistic creative work of art. Now, when we are researching, when research is used in literary studies, because we are now entering into a very specific area called literary study, literary research. When research is entering into our literary studies, it means that it is a systematic investigation and study of materials or sources. Why we are studying this? To establish facts, analysis and interpretation of literary text, analysis and interpretation of literary text to arrive to a particular conclusion. Friends, the term scholarship is considered to be an academic achievement. That's why I said all of us are researchers, but very few are research scholars because they are trying to reach to a academic scholarship. And scholarship is considered to be the highest level of academic achievement. How it is going to achieve? It is going to achieve through persistent and contentious efforts. You're taking conscientious efforts to achieve this scholarship. That's why this scholarship has a specific distinctive place in literary studies. Most of the time we used to say that it is somehow a specialized and difficult task to pursue. So extensive investigation into historical facts, correction of facts, editing of text, textual analysis, and criticism, all these things are part of your highest academic achievement called academic scholarship. Now, if you are trying to find it out, that there's a nis- mm, there's a scope for literary research. The scope for literary research is through literary criticism, is through literary research, is through literary scholarship. And all these things are interrelated and interdependent. So we need to understand how a research is, and how this research, when it is entering into a specific area called literary studies, how this research is made in literary studies, what is the scope of this research, what is called as literary research, how this literary research takes place, and how this literary research is having its origin, and how this literary research, which I talked with you, which I discussed with you about the qualitative kind of research, how it is going to reach up to its qualitative range, how it is going to be part of the qualitative research. We are going to discuss all those things in upcoming lectures. I hope that you are getting all the things done very comfortably. We'll talk about rest of the things in tomorrow's lecture.